All right, welcome back to Wooden Sticks. We are, as always, recording from the Aquarius Home Services studio. Big week ahead, big weekend ahead with Hockey Day Minnesota. We're going to get to that with our guest today, Gabby Billing from the Minnesota Wild. She is in charge of hockey partnerships. She's one of the coordinators there, works along Wayne Peterson, the Wayne train. Those guys do a fabulous job, and Gabby, like a lot of people involved with the Minnesota Wild, have their fingerprints all over this big hockey holiday that we're about to embark on. Super excited to talk with her about her journey. Started back at Breck with the Mustangs, three-sport athlete, hockey, soccer, and track. Captain on the rink with the Mustangs for the hockey side of things. And oh, by the way, went on to play at Dartmouth and was a rock star there in the Ivy League, both on the ice and in the classroom. She's just an unbelievably cool gal, and the Wild are really lucky to have her. And I'm super excited to have her join the show today to talk a little Minnesota Wild, talk a little Hockey Day Minnesota. This broadcast will come out on Friday. The big day is Saturday at Valley Fair in Shakopee. We'll get into all that good stuff as the show progresses. But I wanted to start Wooden Sticks today with a tip of the fedora to one of the all-time great high school hockey coaches and players in the state of Minnesota and the illustrious history that goes around with it. That's Willard Eichelä, who passed away this week at the age of 92. I didn't know Coach Ike real well, but our paths crossed numerous times, and got to know him a little bit in the later years after he retired. He was a legendary goalie up at Evelyn Gilbert back in the 40s, four-year starter. In his final 3 years, he didn't lose a game, and they were state champions. He had 5 shutouts in the tournament in his career, which is still a record to today, and went on to play at Michigan for the Wolverines, was an All-American collegiate goalie as well. And then really best known in these parts for what he did at Edina. When he came back to Minnesota after playing at Michigan, he moved to Edina back in the late 50s, started that hockey program, and was a big part of getting Braemar Arena built. And it's a hockey mecca now that we all know and love. The Hornets play there, but of course section hockey, when you get to the later stages of the season every year, get some unbelievable matchups at Braemar. And, of course, all the tournaments over the years you played there as a youth hockey player. And our paths first crossed in the mid-'80s when I was a goaltender at Burnsville, playing for another legendary coach in Tom Osiki. And when we won a regular season game there in 1985, my senior year, it was Coach Osiki's 21st year at Burnsville. And that was the first time Burnsville had won a varsity game at Braemar Arena. That speaks to the incredible consistency, the greatness of the program that Willard Eichelä had built at Edina. And he retired back in 1990, hadn't turned 60 yet, but did have over 600 wins and 8 state champions. That's unbelievable. 8 times a state champion. Just a remarkable guy. Had that houndstooth fedora on the bench, and just a class act. I've got to know many of his former players over the year, probably none better than Marty Nanny, Louis' son. And nobody ever says a bad word about Coach Eichelä, just the way he ran that program. And then getting to know him over the years, I'd bump into him at Braemar. He was always there. If it was a big game, whether it was the Hornets or section playoff time, you'd bump into the coach wandering around that arena, and had a couple of great conversations with him over the years, and just had a ton of respect for the way he did his business. And for all of us here in Minnesota, like, seriously, we're better for having this guy a part of our hockey history, both as a goalie up at Evelyn, but more importantly as a coach that did it the right way at Edina from 58 to 1990. Think about that, over 30 years of excellence. And I know it's the cake eaters, and trust me, growing up in Burnsville, we are built to have a disdain for the green and gold, but truthfully, the mutual respect and the class in which he built that program, just nothing but love for Willard Eichelä. And my condolences go out to his family and friends and all his former players at Edina. It's certainly a week of sadness because we lose the coach, but at age 92, we also celebrate a life very, very well lived. And so again, tip of the fedora to you, Coach Eichelä, and just a wonderful part of the history of hockey here in Minnesota. And, that really does bring us to where we are this week for Hockey Day Minnesota, because this started back in 2007. It's the 19th edition. of HDM. And every year it gets bigger and better. Can't wait to see how Shakopee over at Valley Fair builds this one this year. It's just a phenomenal day to take a look back at how blessed we are here in this state to have the game we do love so much. And for me, it's not just about Shakopee and Valley Fair. We look back at all the other events throughout the years. And, I've got some great memories going back to Baudette Bay where it started for those first 2 seasons. The weather we dealt with in places like Grand Rapids and Hermantown. Hankey Pit at Elk River was really cool. Nate Prosser scoring that overtime winner. Elk River native, of course, that night for Minnesota, former guest here on the show as well. Holman Field in St. Paul with the active airfield, getting to watch the Cadets and the Pioneers. That's a great rivalry here in town. Going up to Duluth at Bayfront Park, Stillwater, Lowell Park, Lake George, up at St. Cloud. Bemidji rocked it in some cold weather. And, of course, Minneapolis had some cool snow. Mankato was magic. You want snow. We had it all down there. And, of course, the Mavericks and the Tommies took center stage right in the heart of that snowstorm. White Bear Lake and Hill Murray in White Bear was pretty cool. And, of course, last year, Warroad just crushed it as we knew they would. So that's just a brief history of this day. And Saturday is the big day. Come on out and see us. The first game's at 8:30 in the morning. Gabby and I are going to talk all about Hockey Day here as the show progresses. Want to give a quick shout out to my main man, Johnny Schweitz. He, of course, with the Minnesota Masonic Charity Group. They've got the Cancer Center. They've got the Children's Hospital. They've got the Masonic Home over in Bloomington. Just a few examples of all the great work they do here in our community in the Twin Cities. The largest fraternal organization in the world, you betcha. The Masons have consistently answered that call when it comes to all your charitable needs. Thank you, John Schweitz. Thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for supporting our show here on the Talk North Podcast Network. And another great supporter is up next. Here's a word from OnX Maps.
We've told you about OnX Hunt. Now let me tell you about OnX Fish. Ice fishing is here, and it's time to hit the frozen water with OnX Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on ice. Use OnX Fish to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. For a limited time, download OnX Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice.
Welcome back to Wooden Sticks. We are, as promised, joined by Gabby Billing. And Gabby, I gave them a little background on your journey from Breck to Dartmouth to the Minnesota Wild. But let's start with this. It's a big week for all of us. It's Hockey Day, Minnesota. And, of course, everybody's got their fingerprints on this day from your side of things. And, of course, on the TV side over at FanDuel Sports Network. I mean, it's that one time of the year where everybody's pulling on the rope together and hoping that we get the right weather and the right venue and the crowds are good. How is your Hockey Day prep going?
Yeah, things are great on our end. It's been a crazy couple of weeks trying to get everything ready for tomorrow, really when everything launches off, and then Saturday obviously being the big day. But Wayne and I, my boss, were out at the site at Valley Fair yesterday, and things look great. It's really looking like a hockey day, and to have the Wild thing from Valley Fair in the background of the rink is just looking spectacular. So we're really excited to kick things off, and hopefully we're going to have, like you said, great crowds and great weather. Weather looks like it's going to be in the mid-20s and cloudy, which is perfect for playing and perfect for the broadcast. So hopefully everything is coming together nicely for us.
Well, like you, I grew up in Minnesota, and Valley Fair was a big part of my childhood. And then I got to experience it as a dad. I've got 3 daughters. They're all in their 20s now. And I have great memories of going to that park, and whether I was going on the rides as a youngster or taking them on all the rides when they were kids. What are your memories of Valley Fair when you were a kid?
Yeah, I haven't been a ton. However, when I did go, I remember it being some of my greatest memories. I'm I would consider myself a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so I'm a big roller coaster gal. And I just absolutely love rides. So to be able to come back and have hockey day at that venue is really exciting, and some of those rides are even going to be open. So you and I will have to maybe get on one together in a couple of days.
I'm all for it. And I think the weather has turned. Like this week has been a little bit, speaking of roller coasters, it's been just that, from the below zero temps to now it feels like a heat wave, and it's in the 20s. And that's what we're likely going to have this weekend. How much outdoor hockey did you play as a kid?
Oh, so much.
Really?
Anytime, any chance I got, I was on the outdoor rinks, and I have a brother who's 2 years older than me, and he also played hockey. So wherever he was, I wanted to be. And we had a couple of outdoor rinks in Rogers when I was growing up, and so we would go up there any chance we got. I had some cousins that also played in the area, and some uncles as well. So any chance we got to go out there, we were kicking the puck around and just playing shinny and having a great time.
Was there somebody that brought you to the game of hockey, like a famous person that you idolized as a kid, that all of a sudden you're like, well, I want to be like her or him or whoever it was? How did hockey become part of your passion?
Yeah, so just as I mentioned, I have a brother who's 2 years older, and growing up, uh, I did everything that he did. If he was playing sports out in the yard, I was playing sports out in the yard. If he was shooting pucks, I was shooting pucks. And so he played hockey before me, obviously, and I wanted to be just like him. And so that was probably my main influence getting into hockey. But I also had five uncles that played hockey. My mom's five older brothers all played. One played
Wow.
actually in college at St. Thomas, which is where I
Nice.
ended up doing my fifth year, COVID year. So a fun little connection there. But I just had a lot of hockey influence in my family growing up, and my mom brought my brother and I to the Maple Grove Arena for learn to skates from the time we were probably 2, 3 years old.
Oh,
And so we got into it really early, and then kind of going on from there. One of the big female influences in my hockey career was Winnie Broke Brown. I did OS growing up, and I didn't start doing that until a little bit later, but she was always kind of a role model that I idolized, and she helped me a lot along my path getting into college hockey and just all the way along the way there. So yeah, a couple of good connections, but mostly my family from the very beginning.
well, and I think of Winnie too. I think of what she's meant to the game of hockey for years, not just as a player, as a coach, now as a broadcaster. Like, she is one of the real icons on the girls' side into the women's game, and it's come so far. I've got my history of 10 years as the head coach at St. Thomas, coaching the women's program, and I connected with Winnie and the Broad family at a young age, and got to know them and follow their careers, and just so proud to call them friends. And so that's cool that she's a part of your journey. And what I love about kind of doing some research on your background is you were a three-sport athlete in high school: track, soccer, and you were a captain with the Breck Mustangs. I really find that to be um, kind of unique these days. I think people have gotten so hockey centric on our side. Like it's got to be all hockey. It's got to be all the time. And I think if you're good enough, you're going to get there no matter what. And I've always said, and I played for Tom Osiki, who's a legendary coach in Minnesota. He said the same thing. You're going to be a better hockey player if you play other sports at a high level. And so for you, how much did soccer and track help and influence your journey as a hockey player that it would eventually end at the D1 level?
Yeah, you know what? I cannot stress the importance of being a multi-sport athlete enough. Anytime I am on a panel with young athletes, or I talk to young female hockey players or whatever it may be, I always encourage them to play multiple sports. When I played soccer and ran track and field at Breck, I don't get me wrong, I loved hockey so much, and
Hmm.
that was the biggest part of my life, but to get away from it and play those other sports was also incredibly important for me. and to work different muscles and to build endurance through track and just meet different people through those different sports was something that was really fun and really important for me. And I honestly didn't want my whole identity to just be a hockey player. I wanted it to be an athlete and a student athlete and a friend and just so many more things that I think, especially at Breck, people kind of put the hockey players into a little box, and I didn't want to I didn't want to get locked into that. And so, like I said, where I loved hockey and that was definitely my primary sport, I really valued those experiences playing other sports and getting to know other people and just do other things.
Well, we learned all about Herb Brooks' mythology watching the movie Miracle, and one of the catchphrases that he used, and it was brought up in that movie, was the legs feed the wolf, which means in hockey you've got to have the legs and the endurance. And I think of you as a hockey player, Gabby, with track and field and soccer. Talk about the legs feeding the wolf. I know, because you still play bandy, that you're an incredible skater, but that certainly had to have an influence on some of the speed that you brought to the game.
Oh, absolutely. I was in the best shape of my life, actually, when I was in soccer season. We had the conditioning drills that we had to run and do during practice and fitness testing at the beginning and ends of the year. They were brutal. And I was a short distance runner in track, but we would still have to do long distance workouts and like you said, building up that endurance and that strength in my lower body absolutely helped me with hockey and like you said, still helps me in bandy, which I play today.
And we're going to get into the bandy thing here in a little bit, but I want to talk a little Dartmouth hockey. And I remember when I was at St. Thomas, and I was there from 98 to 2007, and we recruited a ton of Minnesota girls, obviously. And when I would talk to the girls in November and December, they'd be all like, I want to go far away. I want to go here. I want to go there. And then all of a sudden we get into February, March, and I'd circle back with some of these recruits, and they're like, no, I actually kind of want to stay closer to home. And that was my, hopefully when I was recruiting, I'm like, oh, I'm at St. Thomas. I want to keep them in the Twin Cities and make it a different experience. So how many schools did you look at, and how did you end up selecting Dartmouth?
Yeah, so I didn't end up actually touring a ton of schools, but I did talk to and consider a lot of them. A lot were on the East Coast, a lot of the Ivies that I looked into. And actually, just a funny quick side story. The first time that Dartmouth called me, I hung up the phone and I turned to my mom and said, I can never go to that school. I can't go to an Ivy League school. That's gonna be way too much for me, playing sports and trying to do those academics.
Yes.
And my mom was like, well, hold the phone. Just hang on. Let's consider all of our options here. And obviously it ended up working out in the end. But yeah, I was actually between Ohio State and Dartmouth. Those were my very two last schools that I had toured and that I was considering. And I ultimately fell in love with the campus at Dartmouth and the campus culture with the strong community feel and the coaches and the team. It just kind of all, it sounds cheesy, but I got that feeling when I stepped on campus, and that kind of never went away. And that's what ultimately drew me there. And I had quite a few ups and downs, and we went through a couple of coaches and
the pandemic.
Yeah, and we had the pandemic, which canceled my whole junior season, but I wouldn't change that experience for anything. I think I learned a lot more that way than I would have if it was all rainbows and gumdrops. And I definitely value that experience that I had there. It was incredible, and I met still to this day a couple of my very best friends.
Well, it's funny. We do have some similarities, and it's crazy because we're separated by 3 decades here. But when I was a high school player, the only Division I school that recruited me was Ohio State. And so I had taken a tour, and I had played a year in the USHL in Des Moines. and the Ohio State coaches said, listen, you had a great year. You got pelted with pucks. Your skills are developing. We want you to come back and play another year for the Buccaneers in the USHL. And then we've got a partial scholarship for you that can, if things go well, can progress into a full ride. And so Ohio State was like all on my radar. I finished up my first year of junior hockey, and the St. Thomas coach called me. Terry Abram was his name, and he had me come over for a tour. And as you were saying, that feeling, my dad and I walked on that campus over at St. Thomas, and I was hooked. I was like, oh my God, I lived there all my life. I'd never been over there. And I looked at going back to another year of junior hockey, and I just didn't know if I wanted to do that. And I wasn't a great student. And so I'm like, God, I want to get started and go to a school where there's small classrooms. Here's where the similarities fall off the beaten path. I ended up getting into St. Thomas to play hockey on academic probation. You went to an Ivy League school. We're all academics. I think we're on different ends of the spectrum there. But, and by the way, seriously, I have to tell you, as I did some research and I saw all academic Ivy League, I thought to myself, and I've known you now for a couple of years, and I know you're a rock star at your job, and you're just fantastic at what you do. I talked about you already when we taped the open of the show. But when I saw that, I'm like, that is pretty damn impressive, knowing you were a D1 athlete. And as you mentioned, it's intimidating to go to an Ivy League school and to finish up all academic like that. That had to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was definitely not easy. There were a lot of late nights and maybe even a couple of all-nighters and a lot of stress. But having that degree from Dartmouth, too, is something that I will absolutely cherish forever. I think it's just like a badge of honor, honestly. And
for sure,
seeing where I was when I first got that call and thinking that I couldn't do it, and then, like you said, ending up where I am today and with those accolades is something that's incredibly special to me.
And then our other connection that we have, aside from loving the Wild and working for the Wild, is the St. Thomas connection. How did that process work out?
Yeah, so my junior year at Dartmouth, I had it was my junior summer. So at Dartmouth, you do something called sophomore summer, where you typically stay on campus the summer after your sophomore year to take classes, bond with your class, all kinds of good stuff like that. And because of COVID and all of those fun times, I deferred my sophomore summer to junior summer. And then I actually ended up taking a remote internship with a company called Twilio. They were a cloud communications platform, and I was just like a sales development representative intern for them. And so I did that internship and then finished up my career at Dartmouth and was getting ready for just thinking about graduation. And I had a return offer from Twilio, and I was going to move down to Atlanta, Georgia, and take that return offer in person.
Wow.
And I thought, I've been in Minnesota my whole life. Now I've moved out east and have done New Hampshire and loved it out here, but maybe I should try something else. And then I thought about that a little more, and that didn't sound like me. And that didn't sound like where I wanted to be. And I was still kind of having some what ifs on doing a fifth year using my COVID year. And so I figured I would enter the transfer portal, and if I liked what I saw, great. And I would pursue that. And if not, then I would just move on and figure it out from there. And I entered the transfer portal, and within 10 minutes, Bethany Browson, one of my coaches at Breck, who is now interim head coach at St. Thomas.
I know her, and she's fabulous.
She was an assistant coach when I was there, and she contacted me within 10 minutes of entering the transfer portal and asked me what was up and if I'd be interested in coming on a tour when I was home for Christmas break. And that's kind of where the ball started rolling. And I did come home for Christmas break and stepped on campus and got that same feeling that I felt at Dartmouth and the same feeling that you felt when you stepped on that campus. And it just, I didn't think I could pass up this full circle opportunity to end my career with one of the coaches that has had a lifelong impact on my life, and she's one of my biggest role models, both in the hockey world and outside of it. We both have a psychology background, and she's actually writing her dissertation right now. Um, so to play for her and the other coaching staff at St. Thomas and to play for that group of girls in the WCHA was an offer I could not turn down. And then another small tidbit of that as well is one of my best friends and teammates at Dartmouth actually committed to do her 5th year COVID year at St. Thomas on the same day that
Oh,
I did.
how cool is that?
Yeah, so Lottie Odnoga is actually from Hungary. She became one
Wow.
of my best friends at Dartmouth. We lived together our senior year, and she was hell bent on playing another year of hockey, and she's still playing professionally over in Sweden. Um, and then when I was kind of on the fence, we had talked a lot about it, and we ultimately made the decision if we were going to do it, we were going to do it together. And, and that's how we ended up doing our 5th year at St. Thomas. But that was just another really special part of the experience as well.
Well, it's funny you bring up the Hungary connection because in all my years of being around the game of hockey, and I've got 50 of them going back to when I started playing, I haven't seen many players from Hungary. You bring up that today on the show, and I'm doing my prep this week for Hockey Day Minnesota, and we've got a women's game on with the Gophers and Bemidji State. And
Yep.
Minnesota has a sophomore forward, Emma Kreis, from Hungary. And
Yep.
keep an eye on number 13. I was blown away when I saw that, and I had talked with Brad Frost on a conference call prepping for the event this weekend, and he's got a really unbelievable roster of all kinds of different backgrounds globally. And, the Finnish connection, you've got a kid from Czechia, you've got the Hungary kid. The game has evolved, right? I mean, it's incredible.
hmm Yeah,
It really
yeah, that's
has.
actually one of Lottie's good friends. I think they play on the national team together for Hungary, and she told me that she was going to be at the U of M, and I just think that's great. There's so many Europeans over here playing, and to see her from Hungary playing at the U of M, that's really incredible for her.
I want to get into your time now as a bandy player, and I want to talk about bandy. I want to learn about all of it. But before I do that, I'm a movie guy. I'm always going to be the movie guy for people that work around the Minnesota Wild. People always come to me for recommendations. I've got one for you, and it's a romance drama filmed and released back in 1970. But the reason it's connected to you, Gabby, is the movie's called Love Story. It stars Ryan O'Neal and Ally McGraw. And Ryan O'Neal plays a hockey player at Harvard. And so she calls him Ivy. And anyway, the hockey scenes are terrible. Like you'll see them as a fan of the game and as a Division I player yourself, you'll be like, oh my God, these are terrible. But the movie itself is fantastic. And the theme from this movie is super catchy. It's in my head right now. And I want you to watch it. Love Story, 1970, Ivy League hockey love story. I think you'll appreciate it. And we'll talk more movies at the end of our chat here when we get to the hat trick hot seat. But bandy fascinates me. And I don't understand how anyone that plays bandy wants to go out. It looks to me, and tell me I'm wrong, Gabby, it looks like soccer on ice, which is a lot of work.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Um, yeah, so basically you take all the rules from soccer and you put them on ice and combine them with hockey with skates and a stick. Not a hockey stick, it's a different stick. More so like a field hockey stick, kind of.
Yes, yes.
Um, and you play with a little pink hard plastic ball or hard rubber. I don't know exactly what you'd consider it, but when it hits you, it hurts.
Ouch.
Um, and yeah, so you have like in soccer, you have corner kicks, we have corner shots, we have free shots. If you get a penalty, it's a free shot for the other team. If you get um a penalty in the arch, which would be like the box in soccer, you get a penalty shot. So just like a penalty kick. So it's basically all of those same rules. You're just playing it at very high speeds on the ice.
Are there shifts, or is it just like soccer where everybody's out there at one time and you just keep skating, or in soccer, obviously you keep running, and it like I said, it just looks like exhausting.
It and it is exhausting. But yeah, so we have shifts, but they're much, much longer. So for
Okay.
forwards, it's typically about, I think they usually go 5 minutes. For
Oof.
midfielders, it's around 8 to 10. And then for our back line, like halfbacks and fullbacks, they can sometimes be out there for the whole game. And then same thing with our sweeper as well. So it's mostly the forwards and the midfielders that are doing the switching with the people on the sidelines. But like I said, those shifts are in the minutes, more than like hockey shifts, which are around 30 to 45 seconds, as you know.
Exactly. Quick burst and then go to the bench. In hockey, we're out there, you're grinding away. How big are the nets?
I'm pretty sure the measurements on those are 11 feet by 7 feet. So 11
Oh,
feet wide
wow.
by 7 feet tall. And as you can imagine, for one goalie standing in that net, that would be pretty difficult. And to make
Yeah.
things even more difficult, they don't have a stick. They just have these mitts. They're like padded mitts that they
Oh,
wear. So
wow.
all hockey gear and then padded mitts to try and block the ball.
They have to be incredibly gifted to get in front of that. Number one, you said it hurts. Number two, I always thought as a goalie, and I grew up, using my stick for everything. When I lost my stick within a play, I felt so awkward. So that's got to be a really tricky way to balance yourself and to make pushes laterally without having that stick to kind of guide you. I can't imagine.
Yeah, they are. I mean, all of the women on my team are incredible athletes, but I am continuously impressed by our goalies and the way they dive around the net and the saves that they make are are incredible.
What's the name of your team?
So last year I was on Sisu, which is I believe it's a Finnish word that kind of encompasses grit and resilience and hard work. But this year, we actually expanded the women's teams to three. So, Callie Funk, she used to be my boss at the Wild when I was
Love
an
her.
intern. And she now works for the Minnesota Frost. She actually is spearheading our new team this year, which is called the Kodiaks. So we're the Kodiak Bears. And we've got these great, bright purple uniforms with a big grizzly bear on the front.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, they're pretty great. And you can't miss us when we're on the ice. But yeah, so we're the Kodiaks and we play the other two women's teams, and then we play all of the other teams in our league, our men's teams.
And so you guys will play against a men's team?
Yep. Yeah. So
Oh,
because there's only three women's teams um, in Minnesota and most of North America, we play in a men's league at the Roseville Oval. So we primarily play men's teams, and that's always really great competition for us for those of us that prepare to go over to Sweden to play in the national tournaments over there as well.
so I was going to. I knew Roseville had a rink at the Oval. I've been by there. Are there any other bandy rinks that are in town here that are, if you people want to go out and take a look at it, or even try to play a pickup game? Are there bandy rinks available?
As far as I know, the Roseville Oval is the only one, and it might be the only one in North America. You'd have to fact check me on that. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, and so obviously the Roseville Oval is also outside,
Huh.
and we rarely cancel games. So we've had a couple this year where the wind chill has been negative 23 Fahrenheit, and we've been
Ew.
out there playing bandy games,
Oh,
and we've had toe warmers and hand warmers and about 17 different layers of clothes on, and our face masks are freezing, but we're out there playing the game we love, and hoping that you don't get hit with that rubber ball because that would really sting.
Sounds awful. Like that ball. I remember playing boot hockey as a kid, and we'd start with this fresh, tennis ball that was nice and furry and soft. And by the hour or two into it, when we play all day, that sucker was frozen, and you get hit with that thing. And you're not wearing a lot of equipment when you're playing boot hockey, and the welts that you'd get from that. I'm sure it's very similar to what you deal with on the bandy rink. So let's first, before we get into the Wild and the great season that this team is having, I want to explain to our listeners the youth hockey spotlight concept and execution of this event, because I got to tell you, I'm lucky enough, just on the side, like Wes Walls and Nate Prosser and our mascot Nordy, we come in and we kind of razzle dazzle them with the kids and all that good stuff. But the work that goes into this, the preparation and the execution, as we try to explain to our listeners, these youth teams are showing up for a scrimmage or a practice, not knowing this is happening. And number one, keeping that a secret, and then having the rink look and feel like a Minnesota Wild game. It's incredible. I don't know how you guys do it, Gabby. I know it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to get ready for each one of these, and you do 3 or 4 every year. How is it you guys can pull this thing off?
Yeah, our youth hockey spotlight games are by far one of my favorites to plan and execute. It's a lot more fun to execute it and see it come to life than it is to plan it, because there are so many details that go into it. But a lot of work on the back end with not only myself planning the run of show and the PA script and all those details with getting rally towels and water bottles and backpacks and all that fun stuff that we give to the kids. But it takes a ton of work from the team managers and the head coaches of the teams, the rink managers of the home arena that we're going to be playing in. And it takes a lot of cooks in the kitchen to make that happen. But once it does, gosh, it is incredible. It is so fun to see the looks on the faces of the kids coming in and just having a lobby packed with fans cheering them on as they come off the bus and have no idea what's happening. And to be able to provide that experience to kids, as we've talked about this whole time, I grew up in Minnesota and played youth hockey until I went on to high school and to college. But I cannot imagine what it would have felt like to be that kid, to not know
Right.
what was going on and to show up and have all of the Minnesota Wild's game ops people be there to put on a show for me. That would have, it gives me chills thinking about it.
Well, and I got to tell you, I play a small role, but I get to kind of interview the kids and talk to the kids and watch former players like Wes Walls and Nate Prosser and Stefan Veilleux coach these teams. And these kids, by the time they figure it out and they get there, are just giddy. And then, Nordy kind of steals the show and he's doing all his thing. But I got to tell you, the last one we did was in Northeast Minneapolis. And in one of the interviews with one of the hockey moms, she got a little choked up. And it hit me that it's certainly a youth hockey spotlight game is about the kids first and foremost, but then it takes me back to the parents and the sacrifices that the moms and dads all make to get their kids there. You and I both lived it. Like, without our parents, we never get to have the game have the influence on our lives that it clearly has, and we're still working in the game today. That mom got so choked up that her kids got to have that experience. It was for anybody else, it was just a weekday night, Pee Wee B scrimmage or practice, and it turned into this magical evening, and it hit her. And so I just had to tell you that the work you guys do, it's not just the kids, it's the families involved with those kids. And for our listeners, I am telling you, it is unbelievable to watch this thing come together.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you saying that too. And it's just such a community event to show up, like I said, to the rink and see all of those people from 2 different communities, the home and away team, show up and rally together around this event and to help help sell raffle tickets, and all that money ends up going back to the associations, being split between the 2 of them. It's like I said, such a community event, and that's one of my favorite parts of the job is putting those on.
Okay, so let's get to the Minnesota Wild because it's been an unbelievable season. Even though they have dealt with numerous key injuries, they've got 60 points through 47 games. If you would have told me back in September, Gabby, that they were going to be healthy, I would have taken 60 points through 47 games. And now, as you look at the players that they've been dealing with that have been hurt, it just makes you feel like when this team gets healthy, look out. We are, as we record this, almost a month to the day to the last time Kirill Kaprizov played a game with the Minnesota Wild. I have a feeling, and again, I'll learn more when I get to practice when we're done taping this here on a Wednesday morning, that he might be back this weekend. For you, not only somebody that works every day, whether it's, in the office or at the rink, you love watching the Wild just as much as I do. I know that about you, Gabby. How much have you missed number 97 on the ice? Because for me, I love all the aspects of Wild hockey game night, but he might be my favorite part.
Oh, yeah. He is just a different specimen on the ice. I cannot believe his edge work. He just growing up and playing the game and being so involved in it and working in it, and just knowing what it takes to be that kind of player, I respect him so much, and I just appreciate his skill, and seeing him do what he does on the ice is just so fun to watch. And like you said, I love watching the Wild. They're my hometown team, and now I get to work for them, and that's special in its own way. But it's just so much fun to watch him on the ice and see what he does. And it's just, I think about all the work that goes into that and what he had to do to get to this level and come over from Russia, and it's just it's really awesome, and he's definitely one of my favorite ones to watch out there as well.
Let me ask you about a couple of players that also might have superstar status to their name. 20-somethings like you, Brock Faber and Matt Boldy. They're both going to represent the red, white, and blue here next month in the Four Nations face-off. How much interaction through your hockey partnership work have you had with those guys? And then on and off the ice, I look at them, Gabby, is such great ambassadors for the game. They're willing to do a little extra stuff on the media side, and they are so involved with, if the Wild have an initiative. I look back at Thanksgiving and that whole turkey thing they did. These are guys you can count on both to be great players on the ice, but more importantly, to be tremendous kids off the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a decent amount of I've done a decent amount of work with them off the ice with some of our different community events, and Bella Iverson helps coordinate a lot of those, and I really just get to be a part of them. But I think one that definitely comes to mind was the Hendrickson Foundation Festival in the summer. And in the sled hockey race, it was me, Boldy, Faber, and Middleton lined up with a couple of other people. And just a little plug for myself, I did end up winning that race.
Yes.
But just to see those guys come out and participate in those events, and then I think they hopped on the bench to coach the sled hockey team after that. It's super fun to see what they're doing off the ice as well as on, because they're obviously super talented on the ice, and what they're doing there is nothing short of incredible. But to see all that work off the ice too is really special.
And I think it takes a special personality to mix with these guys. And I've watched some of your interactions with some of these guys, and I look at Erica McKenzie, like you, rock star hockey player, great personality. I do think there's something to it. I mean this sincerely. I do think that your background, the fact that you were a captain, the fact that you played at a high level, I think that matters. And I think these guys pick up on that. And I think that interaction goes that much better. And, hockey players are constantly getting asked to do all kinds of different things, and they're great people. They all want to help out. But, there comes a point, right, where they all get they get plenty of opportunities to help out. And I think the fact that they, appreciate you guys and respect you guys. I look at you and Erica McKenzie specifically as two of their favorites. I think that matters. And so I'm not surprised that interactions have gone well when you've had to do that, because I know these guys get asked by 18,000 different people almost every day to do things. And that relationship that you have, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a level of mutual respect, which definitely helps with convincing them to help at some of our events. And it doesn't take a lot of convincing a lot of the time, which is great
no,
too.
People always ask, because they see that I'm, with the team, whether it's traveling or at home at practice, like I will be today. What are the guys are like? Are they really that good a guy? I'm like, listen, I got to tell you, I've done this for almost 2 decades. They've all been good. There's been a couple of, cranky guys here or there, but I said, this group right now that we have, this edition of the Minnesota Wild that I've been around for 19 years now on the job is the best we've had. And I'm not just talking on the ice. I'm talking about, needing guys to do this, leaning on them for helping here, there, everywhere. We have a very, very connected group of hockey players in that room, and I think it really matters. And so for me, the ultimate dream for me, Gabby, in my job, because I live kind of vicariously through the emotions of the team, is to see them make a Stanley Cup run. And I had Matt Make on the show about 6 weeks ago, and we had this same conversation. Do you allow yourself, when you're walking into that office on a cold, Monday morning, when you probably are still waking up and you're looking at the week ahead and you've got 8 million things, do you allow yourself to think about or dream about what it would be like to be going into that office in June, late June, knowing that you've got a Stanley Cup game to work that night? Because I got to tell you, I think about it all the time.
Yeah, it's hard not to think about it, honestly. I, like I, s- excuse me, like I said, having the Minnesota Wild be my hometown team, that's always been my dream, is to see them make a Stanley Cup run, and now to work for them, I think that is even heightened. I cannot imagine the feeling and the energy that would be going through our office if we were walking in, and God, the season gets long too. But to be able to keep coming to the office and have them still be playing in June would be an unmatched feeling. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we get healthy here soon, and we can keep working our way towards that.
Now, Gabby, us mere mortals probably will never get to actually execute on this, but I'm going to tell you, if and when they get it done and they win the Stanley Cup, let's just pretend that because of all the hard work we've done behind the scenes, privately they give us a moment to do one of 2 things with Lord Stanley's Cup. Are you I'm going to drink champagne out of that thing, or are you going to eat your cereal out of the Stanley Cup?
Oh, I'm not really big on either of those things.
Come
I
on.
would I would have to I would have to do some thinking on maybe I'd put like a really nice pasta in there. I've got a good Italian background, so maybe I'd have to put some penne pasta with chicken in there
Ooh.
and have that
Oh,
instead.
I'm going honeycomb, and I've obviously thought about this already, and I'm just not a big drinker. People that know me know that I'm not I'm a Diet Coke guy, but
Oh yeah.
anyway, the honeycomb would be first and foremost. And you've got Casetas right there, so if we're gonna have the parade that goes up and down West 7th, we maybe can get this done with the penne pasta for you. So we'll both dream. I do think, and I mean this sincerely, and everybody that I talk to hockey about in my small circle, I remind them that this group right now that we have with Faber, with Boldy, with Kaprizov, this core of guys that we have right now in the next 5 years is going to make a run at the Cup. I have no doubt in my mind. And, I've been around a lot of teams, ups, downs, good, bad. This team, I really believe, and it might be this year if they can get healthy. I think they're capable. They've shown that already. But I'm really excited about where this team is going.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what the near future holds, and what the next couple of years hold. I think it's going to be an exciting run for them, and for all of us working with the team.
Well, you and I have had a great working friendship for a few years now, and I've always enjoyed my time with you. But I finally get to learn a little more about Gabby away from the Minnesota Wild. So here comes the hat trick hot seat. We've got 3 questions. There are no wrong answers. We're just going to learn a little bit about you. And I'm going to, I think some of my buddies that listen to the show are going to cringe when I say this, but one of my all-time favorite movies is a rom-com. It stars Hugh Grant. It's called Notting Hill. And I'm sorry, dudes, it's a great movie. And I'm not going to apologize for loving Notting Hill. So I'm going to ask you, if you could only watch one rom-com the rest of your life, your very favorite rom-com, what is it?
Oh my gosh.
Tough call,
Oh,
right? There's a lot of good ones out there. Tough call.
yeah. You are putting me on the spot here. I feel like the first one that's coming to mind is The Proposal.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew that movie would get mentioned. Yeah, Chrissy, my gal here, she loves that one. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like it. And she's fantastic, right? I mean, she's so good at what she does. So I get it. Any others come to mind?
Um, Trying to think about another one.
And that's 2009. You were a real young kid in 2009.
I've got a bit of an old soul, Gorgie.
Well,
I
I see
because
though.
my
I mean, I was pumping up Sandra Bullock, but I forgot that Ryan Reynolds was in that movie. And now
yeah,
I do
yeah.
get it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Another old one that I'm gonna go with too is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I think
Great
that was
movie.
maybe 2003. That one was
Oh,
a bit before my time as well. Um, Ooh, yeah, I feel like those are maybe the ones that I'm thinking off the top of my head.
have you
Um,
seen Notting Hill? Or are you too young for that?
I have seen Notting Hill,
Okay,
and
good.
that is a good one. I actually didn't watch that. I watched it for the first time not too long ago. Um, and it's just a classic.
It is. And I think Love Actually is another rom com that I always watch. Like we all have Christmas movies that we migrate towards, and for me, Love Actually is one again with Hugh Grant, who I'm a huge fan of, that I would recommend. So anyway, we get a little taste there of your what you enjoy, and those are good recommendations. So now this is more of just a factual thing that's going to open up some. I guess it's going to take us behind the curtain a little bit to what you love. But your very first concert, I want to know who you went to see and the venue. Where did you see that concert?
My very first concert was Carrie Underwood.
Oh
I
wow,
think I think I was in, oh gosh, seventh grade maybe? Seventh grade,
cool.
and I went with a friend of mine and my mom and my mom's best friend. And God, I don't remember where it was.
Might have been the XL.
I think it was the XL.
Yeah.
I think it
Well,
was.
the only relatable story I have is and I really appreciate Carrie Underwood. I see her every Sunday night because I don't miss Sunday night football, and we've been waiting all day for Sunday night. But I took my daughters before Taylor Swift was who she is now. You could actually afford to buy a concert ticket, and I love Taylor Swift, but I didn't realize I loved her until my 3 daughters dragged us to a show at the Exxon Energy Center, and this is probably, gosh, 10, 12 years ago. And all I remember is the one of the encores, it was raining on the stage. But as you know, the X is spectacular for hockey, but it's even better for concerts. The acoustics there are
Yeah.
really, really good. And I went to that concert kind of grudgingly to see Taylor Swift, and I left a Swiftie, and I haven't changed since. So yeah, very similar to Carrie Underwood, right? I mean, kind of the same, type of talent. We saw Carrie Underwood this week at the inauguration, and I never talk politics on this show, but I will tell you that seeing her sing that song a cappella just speaks to the talent that she has, just like Taylor Swift. They're incredible at what they do. And 7th grade, that also reminds us how young you are, still in your 20s. All right, final question on the hot seat here. If you're going to go out for a special dinner, whether it's that special someone or just a good friend, and it's got to be in the Twin Cities, and it's money doesn't matter. Somebody just says, "Hey, it's on me. We want to take you to this place," and it's going to be a really special night to celebrate something, whether it's your birthday or some type of anniversary, whatever. What would be your number one pick for a restaurant in town for that special dinner?
Oh boy. I I think I'm gonna have to go with Ama Sushi. It's
I am not familiar.
it's over like 50th and France area in Edina.
Oh
It's
yeah,
kind of just a smaller, quaint little place. And honestly, the prices aren't even bad, but that is some of the best sushi I have ever had in my life. And
no kidding.
sushi's probably one of my favorite foods. So that would probably be my pick.
That's a great tout. And I don't love sushi, but my daughters absolutely do, and I have not been to that spot. So then I can look like the cool dad the next time we get together, and I can take them over there because I love that area. There's a great movie theater there that I frequent. In fact, embarrassingly, I was there yesterday afternoon, seeing the movie. Could have gone to see the sushi house yesterday. For me, it's Mancini's, and that tells you all you need to know
Mm.
about me. I love an old school supper club, and Mancini's kind of in the shadows of the Excel Energy Center on West 7th. I think a lot of our older listeners know all about that. But we learned a lot about you today, Gabby, and I hope that in our time together working side by side with the Minnesota Wild, we get to see that cup run because it's I think an organization and a hockey community that needs it. And I think we're a state, and I've lived here a lot longer than you because I'm a lot older than you, and seen another Viking season come to a crashing halt.
Ugh.
This state needs it and needs it now. Like, I mean it. Like, we need it and we need it right now. Hopefully it happens soon.
We're desperate. We've had our hearts broken one too many times, and we're gonna start losing hope. So
Oh,
we all
we've
need it.
passed that. We passed that bridge a long time ago for some of us. You're too young to understand. But honestly, great job today. Look forward to celebrating Hockey Day Minnesota alongside you this weekend. It's going to be great. Will you be in Shakopee or are you going to be in St. Paul the whole time?
Yep, I'll be in Shakopee. I'll be there starting on Thursday, and I'll be there through all day Saturday. And just one other small tidbit that I honestly kind of forgot about until my dad brought it up yesterday, but I played in Hockey Day, Minnesota in 2014 in Elk River at the Hanky Pit.
That was one of the better renditions of Hockey Day. You were there.
I played high school hockey at Rogers my 8th grade year before going to Breck, and we played in
Oh
that
my
game. I think
gosh.
it was against Isanti, and it was a cold one. But just another really full circle moment for me to now be helping plan and run that event today.
And of course, you're on the varsity as an eighth grader.
I
So again,
was.
we know what an unbelievable talent you are. And then at the Elk River, whenever I think of that, I think of Hanky Pit, which was just like a movie type of setting. Like it was just like Central Casting 101 with the snow flying and that little, you have to walk down a hill to get to the actual rink. It was packed. And then
Yeah,
Elk River native Nate Prosser, you can't make it up. Speaking of
yeah,
Hollywood and movies, scores the winning goal in overtime that night. The fact that he was even on the ice in overtime was a long shot, but then for him to score the winning goal on the year that we had Hockey Day at Elk River, amazing. And that's what we're looking forward to this weekend. The beauty of being a part of all 19 of these hockey days is I've got stories for every year, and it gets bigger and better, and people celebrate throughout the state. And so we're going to both be a part of that this weekend. And so I know this is a busy week. And honestly, Gabby, thank you for taking the time to be part of the show today.
yeah. Thanks for having me on. This was a blast, and I look forward to seeing you out in Shakopee at Valley Fair. And like I said, getting on one of those rides.
Yeah, we'll do it together. It'll be terrific, but it's going to be one of the kiddie rides like the carousel because my stomach can't take those big rides anymore. That is the great Gabby Billing from the Minnesota Wild. I'm back to put a close on another edition of Wooden Sticks next. All right, we're back to close the show here on the Sticks. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of Gabby and the work that she does with the Minnesota Wild. Just a young rising star, and Minnesota's lucky to have her. And so great to hear her story, the journey that took her from Breck to Dartmouth and eventually to the Minnesota Wild. Still plays bandy, which is really cool. And like me, just loves the game. And so when we put on some of these events, like those youth hockey spotlight games, you can see her passion for the game. And that's what drives a lot of people that work in the game. And certainly that she's been able to do all kinds of incredible things here with the Wild and their organization. So congrats to her and Wayne Peterson, my dear friend, who I call the Wayne Train. And we'll all be gathering this weekend. And I hope, as you get to this podcast, it's in time. I know that people come and go with these shows at different dates and times. But if you're getting this in time to join us Saturday out at Valley Fair in Shakopee, please do. Our broadcast starts at 8 a.m. We go to almost midnight after the Wild game. And if you can come out to Shakopee and support that great event, the rides are going to be going. The drinks are going to be flowing, all kinds of great beverages for you out there, from hot chocolate, hot cider, to anything else you need. And the hockey is going to be just spectacular. We've got great high school matchups. We've got a Division I women's game. We've got 3 great outdoor games on Saturday. The first puck drops at 8:30 in the morning with a matchup between Eden Prairie and Hibbing. And I'm certain that the crowd mid-afternoon for Maple Grove and Shakopee, 2 teams that have aspirations of not only getting to the tournament at the Xcel Energy Center in March, but maybe winning that tournament. Powerhouse matchup with the host city. That's going to be pretty spectacular. So Hockey Day is this weekend, and we roll on here on Wooden Sticks. We'd love to get you or your company some airtime here, and the White Dog is the guy that can get that done. Andrew Height's his name, AHEYDT@talknorth.com. Give him an email. Let him know what we can do for you, and we'll pump it up right here on the show. And if you have any suggestions for guests, of course, you can find me on Twitter. I guess we call it X. Either way, you know where to find me, at Gorgomatic21. Happy Hockey Day, everybody. We'll be back with a new episode next week. Thanks again for taking the time to listen.